Welcome to Healers with Humor.
Where healing meets heart and a whole lot of vulnerability.
We're your hosts, Candice and Shelly, two healers navigating life, love, and all the messy moments in between.
Because we believe that healing isn't just about crystals and meditation. It's about embracing the chaos, learning from the challenges, and finding joy in the journey.
Each week, we'll share real stories, insightful conversations, and maybe even a few awkward truths just to help you navigate your own healing path.
And guess what? This season, we're bringing in special guests to share their wisdom and inspire even more connection.
So grab your favorite cup of coffee or tea, or just settle right in and get ready for laughs, lessons, and a whole lot of light. This is Healers with Humor. Welcome back, Bright Lights, to Healers with Humor Season 2, Episode 2. Coincidence or divine guidance? Learning to read the signs. I'm Candice.
And I'm Shelly. All right, and we're ready to start this episode. So before we dive into signs, let's talk about the candle of the episode. I think we both felt pulled to bring candles today. I'm working with one from New Moon Beginnings, and it's positive energy, which I think with signs, right, we should take as positive. So
Absolutely.
I kind of loved how that fit in.
Excellent. Yeah, the candle for the episode for me, again, from Soul Love Connections, was gratitude. And I love that. So allowing myself to give and receive freely from a place of love. And so if we're open to signs, right, giving and receiving freely fits right in. So having some gratitude.
And her gratitude candle is probably my favorite.
Yeah. I am smelling it right now. And then for the oracle card for the episode is from a deck called Angels and Auras Oracle by Radley Valentine and Dougal Fraser. And the card number is a number 36, which reduces to a 9. We happen to be in a 9 year this year. And it is called Shower of Prosperity. So as we connect and begin to see signs, remembering to fill ourselves with gratitude and remembering how worthy we are of actually receiving from the universe. So prosperity shows up in so many different ways. For us, it's not just about money, right? But it's also all of the little things. And so having gratitude for all of it goes a long way with the universe in receiving more. So
I love that.
Yeah. And then just a fun favorite thing. We've talked about this before, but I love to get a mani-pedi. And when I go there, picking a color always was super overwhelming. And so a couple years ago, I had my colors done with Created Colorful. And too much to my surprise, I am a warm autumn. Thought I was going to be a cool spring. And so you get a palette of colors in this warm autumn. And so me and ChatGPT had a little conversation about warm autumn colors and different nail polish, makers, Essie, OPI, whoever. And I ordered a couple online, and now I bring them with me to the mani-pedis. And it just takes that pressure off of trying to pick the perfect color as I'm in the moment. So that's been fun.
Yeah, so I love that. So aside from the fact that one, you're doing something to take care of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Self-care, self-love, and a little time out, right? A break or a reward.
Yeah.
Using color, right, is fascinating because I do think it helps with our mood, or it can be an indicator of other things that we want to pay attention to or bring in.
Yeah.
So I love that for you.
Well, and I just feel more me in my colors, right? Like I'm not a hot pink girl. As much as I wanted to be, I'm just not, right? So I'm more into the autumn colors, right? Think about the leaves on the trees. Those are my colors.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's start talking about signs. I have to be honest. So when I sat down and I was planning the episode and, intuitively heard that our episode was going to be about signs, I was like, oh, I don't know what we're going to be talking about with our listeners, right?
Mm.
And then the things that started to come in were like synchronicity, angel numbers, symbols. But I started asking the question, what is a sign? And so I did what we always do, which is Google it.
Yes.
Went to the official, what does Google say about it?
Yep.
And what Google says about it is it's a display that communicates a message.
Hmm.
And I was like, "Okay, so, signs on the road, right?
Yeah.
Communicates a message. When you get into a relationship, whether it's a friendship or a romantic partner, you're looking for signs that people like you. Are we
Mm-hmm.
getting along, right? Do we have things in common?
Yep.
If you're on a healing journey or spiritual awakening, right? It's signs that you're going through a spiritual awakening and what to expect.
Mm.
And, as we start to talk about, other things for healing, like astrology, which we'll be doing in an upcoming episode, right?
Yes.
What's your sign? And of course, by that, we mean your zodiac sign.
Exactly.
So, what do you put in that bucket of signs?
So I definitely think of astrology first. What is your sign? But when I go a little bit deeper on that and start paying attention to my surroundings, there's signs all around us every day. And so it's what I choose to pay attention to. I guess I have two different buckets of signs. One would be signs that are being sent to me from my spirit team that have a very specific number, meaning or number, right? So I have, angel numbers like you talked about. I have specific numbers that my team will talk to me and to let me know that they are with me, that they're sending me a sign, right? That like whatever the message is that we have with that number is coming through at that moment. Or, someone from the other side is thinking of me. So some might have tangible signs like pennies or rainbows, right? That remind them of someone. And a fun new sign that I have come to through some other spirituality work that I'm doing and learning a little bit of mediumship. I had
Mhm.
to, as homework, I had to connect into a family member that had passed. And so I actually had a little bit of a hard time figuring out who that was going to be,
Mhm.
but I did figure that piece out. This person had passed away a couple of years ago. And so when I asked them, we had this conversation. And when I asked them what the sign was for me to know when they were thinking about me or when they were with me, the answer was donuts.
They're my kind of people.
Donuts have like really no inference, right, to our family or our relationship in any way, but it's a fun sign. And wouldn't you know, the next night I was watching a TV show and there was a food truck in the TV show and it was a donut truck. So that was my hit their way of allowing me to trust the universe, right? And
Yeah.
trust that we had connected. I think the other piece or the other bucket of signs is when there's a message, right? So there's this, I'm thinking about you, or here's like our, commonality that, you need to think about this when you see this number. But then there's also signs when there's something that I need to pay attention to, right? And so to me, those are similar, but a little bit different. So we've talked about spirit animals in the past. So this is a little bit different, but like when an animal crosses my path, not my spirit animal, I immediately pay attention to that and look up the symbolism or the spiritual meaning to what that animal is. So, right, if I'm, just in nature outside, if a bee goes by me, right? Or a rabbit or a deer, whatever it is, I pay attention to that to see what the messages are coming through for that. So a couple of different buckets of signs. What you kind of started us off with a little bit, but what are some of the buckets or signs that you have to add in? Because I know you have some.
Yeah, so I think you hit some pretty good ones. I certainly think with angel numbers, the 1111 is something that I've seen my entire kind of healing journey.
Mhm.
But some of the other things that and you hit on some of them, animals certainly are, key things, and then also getting messages from your guides. But I think of words like deja vu, right?
Mm.
Like, this feels so familiar. I think of people who really resonate with cardinals
Mm.
and
Mhm.
past loved ones.
Yep.
But also things that came to mind were things like ladybugs, right? Everybody that sees a ladybug lands on you and we're like, "That's good luck."
Yep.
Or I think of the game Clue, but then also things like dreams, patterns,
Yeah.
and I know that this has been big for you, and I'm sure you'll probably have an example about it today, but hearing a song or a quote in a TV show, a movie, on the radio, that all of a sudden really impacts you, whether it really gets your attention, you all of a sudden I've cried and or realizing that this is a message for me, right? And it,
Mhm.
it sounds somewhat silly to be like, I'm watching this TV series, and all of a sudden, this is, the same song I've been hearing for weeks or the same message. And so I think a lot of that, to me, are signs.
Yeah.
So certainly, I think it's important for us to kind of dig into more of how we receive them, and then, you know, what we do with them,
What
right?
do we do with them? Exactly.
How do they impact us?
Yeah.
So yeah, so let's dig into that.
Yeah. So, again, we're both always working on our own personal development, so I've been taking, a couple of different classes over the last number of months, and one of them is on archetypes. And so as I was did action on how I was gonna work through a specific archetype, I was sitting in my office and I was looking out the window and, it's winter, even in Florida. It's still it's cold here. It's not always warm. And so what I saw was a bee buzzing outside of my window, and I thought, I don't know that bees are supposed to be out right now. It's a little chilly for bees." And so I took the opportunity to look into the Spirit Animal Oracle deck by Colette Baron Reed to see what the message was for the bee. And the message from the card or from the deck says the message is sweet rewards are on the way. And if you're willing to get your ego out of the way and immerse yourself in connected energy of all things. Well, that was spot on, right? Letting go of my ego. Holy moly. So what I was working on, it was just a great reminder, right? That to set my ego aside, and that's not always easy when we're doing that. But that was definitely it helped me in doing more of that grounded action. And then actually as I was thinking about this morning as we were kind of getting ready to prepare for the episode, I thought, what are some other signs that have led to some deep healing work? And for me, we've talked a lot about my body talks to me in pain. And so early on in my spiritual process, I rebulged a lumbar disc. So I had a bulge disc a long time ago. I had been doing, all the things to keep it where it needed to be. It got better. And then all of a sudden it rebulged as I was in the middle of my spiritual journey.
Wow.
And it was excruciating. I have no words for how bad that pain was. And in hindsight, I should have taken a leave of absence from work because the pain was so bad. But I had gotten promoted and was in this new role with these new groups, and it had only been like 6 months. And so I didn't feel like I could take a leave of absence because I was just getting ready to know them. So again, putting everybody besides myself first and being a good girl, I I just pushed through it. And so that pain took months to alleviate. But it did eventually. But it was a sign that, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but it's a sign that I missed, right? My team was talking to me. My body was telling me that I needed to stop because the pain was so bad. But about a year and a half, year later, I ended up with call it little, but it was a nervous breakdown and some vertigo. So my team was like, "Ooh, she's a tough one. We're gonna really need to get her good this time so that she pays attention and actually does something about it." So, yeah, those are some of the signs that have led to some deep healing work for me. What I know that you've got some signs as well. So, what are
Yeah.
some of your examples?
Sure, but I do wanna make sure that we take a minute and appreciate how far you've come if you're staring out the window and you took all that effort on the bee, right? That's
Yes,
that's the difference in
paying attention.
acknowledging and
Mhm.
being present. Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's a
agree.
huge change. Yeah, so certainly physical pain has been one of the things that gets, my attention. Having overwhelming emotions or thoughts, whether it's in a situation, a place, or due to some, song or movie.
Mhm.
I think the biggest one that comes up is I went to St. Martin last year, and I was so aware of my thoughts, what I was processing, and I had such a, I'll just say, different feel that I thought, wow, I feel so alone, and wow, I feel so out of place. And, there's a couple different ways I could have gone with that, right? Am I depressed right now? Why am I so sad? What's going on?
Mhm.
And really what it was about is, okay, what do I need to work on? Why am I experiencing these things? Now, the long and the short of it is I learned a lot about astrocartography because of going to St. Martin. And I learned exactly what I was supposed to do based on my chart, right? But I could have taken a downward spiral with those thoughts and the emotions, but I really sat and observed them
Yeah.
and said, I know this is out of character. I know these feel strange. There must be a reason.
And we don't always wanna feel those things when we're supposed to be on vacation.
Yeah, poor timing.
Yeah.
Poor timing for sure. Right. But as it was supposed to be, and,
Yeah.
and certainly in the following weeks that I came back, right, I was really able to dig in, learn about something new, learn more about my own chart, right, and then understand this is really something I ought to check out before I go on my next vacation to make sure it's a vacation or a healing adventure.
Yeah.
One of the other things that comes up is you and I were on the phone talking last week, and I was simply just rattling off my medical woes that I couldn't get my primary care physician to really acknowledge.
Mhm.
And as I was ticking down that list of all of my symptoms, you were taking it as a sign and hearing what we should work on,
Yeah.
right? So I was simply really just complaining and telling you my frustrations, right? But it was a sign for it was it was essentially me and my voice and my body giving you a sign
Mhm.
to start working on something,
Yeah. I just got massive
that
chills when you said that.
you could help me, right?
Yeah.
And we ended up having a impromptu amazing session,
We
a
did.
sneaky healing session.
My husband was like,
Um,
2 hours later, "You're done talking to Shelly?"
Shelly needs some help. But that's exactly, that's exactly how I do it for myself and other people, right? I see someone's email of them telling me what they'd like to work on, or I'm listening to their conversations about their symptoms or what they have been experiencing, right? And we see these little signs or triggers or chills that let us know, hey, ding, 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 this is the place you need to, almost like a little pointer saying, this is where we need to do work, right?
Yeah.
And and we've been doing work with each other so much that we can be having what we think is a regular conversation, and and yet we're seeing the signs and the lights and
Yeah.
pointing us. Yeah.
Well, and what was interesting about that conversation too is, yes, I was definitely taking some notes and being like, "Okay, this is what we need to work on." But at the same time, it was like we were mirrors for each other. So you were bringing these things up and, I've had my own struggles with different things physically, and some of the things that came up for you were relevant for me,
Oh.
right? So we had to, we looked at a couple of different things and I was like, "Oh, that's something I need to work on for myself." So it's yeah, if you're paying attention, the signs are everywhere.
Yeah, and I think so. I guess the last part that I'll add to, examples of signs is conversations with friends, right?
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many conversations I'm just having a simple dinner, right? A phone call, which is what we were doing.
Yep.
And so many of those things, right? You could choose to ignore them. You could
Absolutely.
choose to say, "Hey, I know this isn't what you were on the up for tonight, but I can help," right?
Yeah.
Or I'm hearing that you could do more work here.
Mhm.
And I just think that's the amazing part of, right, being in community, taking a breath and being in the present moment, right? And then letting those signs sort of really guide,
Mhm.
right, the conversation or what you're doing.
Yes.
All right, so Candace, why do you think we receive so many signs, right? Bees and chills and
I think it's to help remind me that I don't have all the answers in my head,
Mm,
right? I grew up and, have a very logical brain, and I don't always need to think with my brain. And so it helps remind me that there's something bigger than me out there and that I really need to step into my heart space more. And that's where I get a lot more answers. And when I'm in that heart space, when I see a lot more signs,
Yeah, we're not alone.
that's where the goodies are. And we might also get signs to just help us along the way, right? Sometimes we need that outside influence to think about something differently or see it in a different way. And that's where I think some of the songs and, the TV shows that we watch come into play. And I think we talked about this on a previous episode, but my husband was listening to some music and I was in my office, just doing my work. And a song came on and I just immediately had tears. And it was a sign that a past loved one was with me and that I needed to understand what their energy felt like when they were here. But I mean, I think I I cried for hours, right? Like, it was just so profound,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, it's just yeah, it's to help us along the way.
Yeah, I love
Mm,
that, and
yeah,
certainly when you have an out of place, overwhelming emotion like that, right?
yeah,
It's that's pretty easy to get my attention.
yes, yes, yeah. Why do you think we receive signs, Shelly?
You know, I think that I think part of it is not thinking that we're alone. I know for me, it helps with trust,
Yeah,
right? As sometimes it can feel like I mean, how many times have I said, "Candace, am I crazy?"
same.
Because, we're each on our own little journey. We each are getting different signs, right? Not trying to get to the same place.
Right.
And so you're somewhat alone in that space. While you can have friends and community and other healers that you work with, but nobody really holds the answers for me.
Yes.
And so, my team, bringing in, signs or confirmation as somebody who really works well with affirmation and knowing that things are going well,
Mhm.
particularly when they're tough.
Yeah.
I think that's I think that's a big reason.
Yes. And have there been times that you actually have ignored very blatant signs?
For sure. You know, as I was thinking about, this episode, right? If at the end of the day, right, for those of us who are recovered or recovering perfectionists,
Ugh,
who
yes.
are trying to, do this right and best and fill in the blank, right? If I wish sometimes that I had any acknowledgement of how many beautiful things that I missed today.
Mhm.
So not so much looking at it as like, how did I mess up, right? But
Yeah.
those things for me are really like, thank you, right?
Mhm.
Or it's really profound. It's an epiphany. It's very touching. It's an aha moment.
Yeah.
So I hope that I'm doing a better job at not missing them. But yeah, for sure. I think if we, checked with our pendulums
Yeah.
to say, did I miss anything today? But I think it's more about the the part of it that makes me smile, right? When you see like, when I see 11:11, I'm like, "Oh, 11:11."
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Um, but yeah. Alright, so please say that you also have ignored some signs.
For sure. I already told you I did, right? With my back pain, that was definitely a sign, right, that I needed to slow down and take some time, and I didn't, and I got some information in another way and, another year or so after that, but, yeah, I definitely you know, you're still in a corporate job. I left my corporate job, right, a couple of years ago. It was harder for me to pay attention when I was in my corporate job. I was so busy all of the time. I give you huge kudos because I don't know how you do the for gig along with all of your own healing and doing Finding Your Light. So it takes time, it takes practice, right, to pay attention, which it doesn't sound like it should, but, we kinda go through life unconscious sometimes. So, yeah, I've definitely missed them. I definitely pay more attention to them now, and I typically try to follow the guidance when I receive it, although some days I'm just like, No more signs, please. I've had all the signs I can have for the day. I can't do any more work. But yeah, I try to make sure I'm understanding them when they come through.
Oh, so what do you think happens if you miss a sign? So what was interesting about what you just said, and so I'm curious if that's where you're gonna
Yeah,
go, but
absolutely.
you said if I missed the sign, it was still a year later that you were dealing with the
Yes.
back.
Yeah. So if I miss it, right, we're not gonna well, let's put it this way. We're not gonna miss any big signs. So we might miss little ones here and there, right? But the big ones are going to come back in some way. If they're meant for us, we're going to receive them, whether the easy way or the hard way.
Or the long route or the short route?
Yeah, I'm trying to take the shorter route these days. I've
Huh.
definitely been taking the longer route over the beginning of my journey.
Yeah, I
Um,
certainly think I agree with you just based on, in hypnosis, one of the hypnosis sessions that I had and trying to understand how I would use some of my gifts. One of the
mm,
most beautiful things that I said to myself
yeah,
was that I essentially can't mess it up.
yeah, yeah.
That doing it with, with my heart, right?
Mhm,
Heart-centered, like you mentioned earlier,
mhm.
with the best of intentions, right? Trying my best and trying to live the life that I'm supposed to be living. I can't mess it up,
Yeah, yeah,
and that puts a lot more ease into it.
yeah, takes the pressure off, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. No, I agree. So, bright lights, what are the signs that you've been seeing and maybe not paying attention to, or that you have paid attention to? Drop us some comments, give us some info on what you've been seeing. And if you need help finding some of these signs, let us know, right? Get in touch with us, send us an email, go to our website, go to healerswithhumor.com. Both Shelly and I are happy to chat with folks. Obviously, we both have healing practices where we work with signs all of the time, and we get a lot of guidance when we listen to people. So, yeah, reach out, let us know what you need, and you're not alone.
All right, until next time.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Healers with Humor.
We hope that you found some laughs, a little light, and maybe even a few aha moments along the way today.
Remember, healing's a journey, not a destination, and you don't have to go it alone.
If today's episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend who could use a little healing and humor in their life.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, leave us a review, and follow us on YouTube and any social media to stay connected with us.
Because we're definitely going to be sharing more wisdom, more laughs, and probably a little more oversharing next time.
Oh, you know it. Until then, take care of yourself, embrace the journey, and don't forget to laugh a little along the way.
All right, so see you next time on Healers with Humor.